what's up you guys? This is Century Productions and you're watching the Watchtower series. This is just basically a deep dive into my toy photography. I show you my setups, I show you how I light everything, how I pose my figures, my cutouts, all that stuff. Starting off this episode with some X-Men action. I think actually this is probably going to be an X-Men episode. Love the X-Men. Probably next to Star Wars, one of my first loves was the old X-Men animated cartoon show. I still think it holds up very well today. And of course it's being rebooted as X-Men 97. They've come out with a bunch of new figures. But one of the new figures that they haven't come out yet with is a new Professor X. I know they came out with the, what was it, the House of X, Professor X a while ago, but this one came out in 2019. This is Professor X from the animated series in his hover chair. He was also very heavily used in the Jim Lee X-Men run. I think this is just a fantastic figure, both the chair and the actual figure. I actually picked up a couple of these because, believe it or not, this body worked really well with the Norman Osborn head, and of course the suit was green, so I immediately kit bashed together a little Norman Osborn. But I haven't really shot this figure very much. I think I've only shot it once or twice. It's one of the staples of my collection. It's definitely something that when you put it on the shelf, your eyes just gravitate directly to it. So I wanted to do some kind of X-Men shot. I've always been kind of fascinated with Cerebro and of course Professor X's powers. I think they're very interesting, you know, to think like if I could have the power to change people's minds or look into their thoughts. I think it's really interesting. So was kind of perusing cutouts or just comic book stuff probably a while back, and I came across this really cool Cerebro you know, a gate opening, or I guess a Cerebro door opening right here, and I was like, you know what, I think this might be the perfect cutout for Professor X. So I set everything up, did the cutout, made the cutout, just basically a piece of paper attached to construction paper. I've got it tacked onto a couple of Yu-Gi-Oh tins back here, so it just kind of sits in frame. I'll show you guys another angle here shortly, and I'll show you guys kind of how I made this cutout stay put. But this shot, it's in essence a very simple shot, but I remembered why I don't shoot this Professor X very often. And that's because this is a very hard figure to shoot. Not the figure itself, but the chair. If you can see right on the front of the chair, it is very heavily reflecting the lights here. And no matter what position I put the lights in, if I have them coming from the side or have them coming from the back, no matter where I put them, there's going to be reflection because basically this hover chair is a very hard plastic, very reflective, and there's not really much you could do about that. The only thing that I can think of where you could change that is if you repainted the hover chair to a very matte paint that's not reflective, but it's just not very practical, obviously. And the chair already looks great as it is. It's nice and gold, so I kind of just, you know, played on that. I realized that, hey, even in the cartoon and in the movies, his chair's reflective, so, you know, it's a very natural thing to happen if he was actually, you know, in this hover chair, if you want to call it. So yeah, I just kind of played off with the reflection. It's just basically this is going to take up 90% of the shot, and there's just this sliver of Professor X kind of sitting there like he's entering Cerebro. I guess this is him entering Cerebro, right? Decided to go with the green background. I was initially going to use a light yellow, but I realized I didn't have one, so I went with this light green. I think it's a very nice little contrast. It kind of adds to the composition here. You got this very nice blue, then you got this nice green in the background, and then of course you got this nice little gold here that's shining through the shot. So overall, I'm very happy with how this is looking. Like I said, I love this figure. It's always cool to kind of whip out Professor X and try to shoot something. So yeah, let's check this out from another angle. Okay, so here's kind of the side of the shot here. I guess I'm just going to kind of come in here and kind of just pull this apart a little bit, piece by piece, so you can kind of see what's going on behind the scenes here. But as you can see, these are Yu-Gi-Oh tins. I've had these since I was a child. And basically, these are actually really good tools for toy photography because, first off, there's a bunch of cards in here. They're made of metal, so they're durable. There's a bunch of cards in them, so they're heavy. So if I need to weigh stuff down or prop stuff up, that works really well. And I also use them for all other kinds of reasons. You know, I have a little bit of tack that's actually plastered to the back of this cutout right here, and it's kind of holding everything in place right there. And then of course, I guess I can just, I already took the shot, so let's just go ahead and move this completely out of the way. And I'm not really too worried about this cutout getting all messed up, but it is kind of a cool cutout. But yeah, here's the remainder of the shot. You can see I have, since that sliver is so small, I was able to kind of take two of these acrylic stands and just put them on either side of the Professor X, and just because of that gap, you wouldn't see the two ends right here, so it works out very well. This kind of happened by accident. Is I was going to use this for another shot. This is the Nova Ubiquitous Dio. This is like a floor piece. I was going to use it for another shot, but I realized I needed just like a little bit more clearance, so I could make the chair look like it was hovering, because that was a big thing for this shot for me. I didn't want to just use his little stand that he comes with. He comes with this. The stand is kind of shitty, honestly, but of course, obviously, he needs a stand, you know, for this this hover chair. But I didn't want to use it because, you know, it's a hover chair. You're not supposed to see the air underneath it. I understand why Hasbro did it. So that was a big thing. I wanted to make sure that you could see underneath the hover chair and it looked like it was hovering. You know, that's how my mind works. You know, it's a fucking hover chair. Right? You're not supposed to see the bottom of it. So that worked out very well. As you can see, there's another light behind there. I kind of have that angled so you don't see it in the shot at all. And it's just like perfectly behind the Professor X, and it gives him a nice little glow from behind. And then of course I have my background lit. You can see all the lights are kind of pointed down towards the bottom of that poster back there. And that's to create this nice little gradient that goes up. Basically the gradient, it starts off very light at the bottom and it gets darker as it goes up. Always produces a very cool effect. I like that a lot. I like that effect a lot. Also, I did want to mention though that this hover chair, if you guys have this Professor X, you don't need the stand. I mean, he can just sit by himself without the hover chair. It doesn't fall over or anything like that. So yeah, so this is a pretty cool shot. Big cutout. It was kind of hard trying to figure out how to light it. I think that was the biggest problem, or I guess the biggest issue I was running into, but figured it out. Kind of just ran with the reflections. I think people will understand that there's not really much I can do about the reflections on that hard plastic. You know, sometimes you just gotta, you know, take yourself out of the driver's seat and put yourself in the passenger seat. And you know, if I was viewing this photo and it wasn't mine, I think, oh, I'd see the reflection and be like, yeah, there's probably not much they could have done about it. So anyways, let's check out this shot. Alright, and sticking with the X-Men theme, I pulled out the old Build-A-Figure Sauron. This is easily top 10 figures of all time for me. You know, they took the Amazing Spider-Man Lizard movie figure that this buck originally was on, and it was a horrible figure, and they repurposed it and added the wings and the sculpt work for the head and the paint application, and they really took a bad figure initially and turned it into something really great. I think a lot of people will agree that this is one of the better Marvel Legends figures. It's a figure I've never shot personally. I think I've always been kind of intimidated by shooting this guy just because of how long his wingspan is. I mean, that's a whole foot basically right there. And you know, if you really take a look at my pictures, a lot of them are really contained to small areas. So when I get a bigger figure like this into a setup, it kind of takes a little bit of finagling and me pulling out certain things that I normally wouldn't use. Basically, it kind of pulls me out of my comfort zone, which I think is really important to do, especially with photography. You know, you gotta jump out of your comfort zone. Even though in reality, this is a very simple shot. It's just him sitting or perched on top of a mountain. But it was, you know, a lot of thought actually went into this. I had to use a lot of lights to light the background. The background's very big to really cover the whole span of his, this figure, his wingspan and everything. So basically, I'll run you through a couple things real quick before I change the angle and show you guys really what the setup looks like from my perspective. My camera's very low right here, but we're using this little base I bought on eBay probably a year or two back. I think I've only ever shot this once. You know, for me, I never really thought it was all that great of a diorama. I think I picked it up for like 40 bucks on eBay, but you know, the more I'm looking at it now, it looks really good. So, and it's a mountain, you know, obviously we're kind of going for the vibe that he's in the Savage Land, of course. Got some shrubbery and greenery and fake bonsai trees just kind of laying about. There's like other pieces that are just kind of not even really in frame. This is a really cool diorama though. It's very modular. You can pull it apart and build different pieces with it. And it's cool. I was able to kind of just get him standing on there. Had to use a lot of lights to really light up the whole figure. And I think it's looking pretty good, man. Alright, so here's the whole setup. It's a pretty big setup, man. You can see that poster board in the back. That is a full poster board. What was that, like 24 by 36 or whatever? This is like some old cloud poster board that I grabbed from Michael's like 3-4 years ago or something like that, for basically for photography. It's not my favorite cloud background, but the other cloud backgrounds I have, they're like only a fraction of the size of that. So I think with what it is and the lighting I have on it, I think it works pretty well for this setup. You can see how big this diorama is. You can see Sauron just perched on top there. You know, if you guys know how big the Sauron figure is, you can kind of get an idea of the scale of this setup. I guess I could show you guys. A normal 6-inch figure, little Wonder Man. I'm trying to think of a Wonder Man idea right now. Yeah, it's a pretty cool, cool shot. Like I said, we just used some of the little fake bonsai trees, just kind of, you know, adding a little bit of shrubbery here and there, like I said, to get that feel for the Savage Land. And overall, it's a pretty basic shot, but a lot goes into even some of the basic shots. So let's check this out. Alright, so I'm on the table with an X-Men shot. There's a couple figures in here that I haven't shot or I haven't shot a lot of. And so this is kind of my opportunity to shoot them. I got the new X-Men 97 Wolverine right here. This whole shot is kind of, I guess my interpretation is that they're landing on Krakoa, or maybe the Savage Land. I haven't really decided on what I want my caption to be just yet, but of course this is like remnants of the X-Men Blue team. Of course I'm missing Jubilee and Gambit, but you know, I kind of always have really liked this team more than the Gold team, even though, I mean, I just love the X-Men in general, but if I had to pick a team, I'd probably pick the Blue team. But yeah, it gave me the opportunity to shoot this Wolverine figure. I haven't really shot this Rogue figure that often. I haven't really shot Cyclops. I don't think I've ever shot, well, I think I've shot her once. And then of course Beast. I've shot Beast a million times. It's my favorite, probably my favorite action figure of all time is the Marvel Legends Beast. You heard it here first. It's just such a fun figure to play with, and that's the retro Beast. I would actually say the Caliban Build-A-Figure wave Beast is my favorite, just because I like that blue a little bit more, but I think this retro Beast actually photographs much nicer, and of course it comes with the neutral head. So this is them kind of coming out of a ship. Obviously it's not the Blackbird, but them coming out of some kind of ship. This is this little base, and you know, all of the little space panels and everything like that. This is from the Nova Ubiquitous diorama. You can find it on Big Bad Toy Store. It's a diorama that's modular. You can, you know, kind of build your own setups. It's really hard to build the setups because these pieces are not that easy to pull apart and push back in, but you can't deny that it doesn't look awesome in camera. So I don't shoot this all that often, but when I do shoot it, I try to make sure that I have everything, you know, kind of assembled correctly so I can get the best shot I can out of it. Have a lot of greenery here. I got this G.I. Joe diorama mat right here. Lots of fake bonsai trees right here. Just lots of greenery. I really wanted to give that feel like they landed in the middle of a forest or something. Of course, I have these two trees back here that are from Myron Studios. Lots of set pieces. This is a much larger setup than I typically use. Just a really kind of a fun shot. Got the big sky background back there. I can kind of show you guys, like, you know, it's pretty contained. So, you know, I'm only putting stuff that's in the frame. I don't really need to go too much bigger than this. The lighting is pretty insane. There's a lot of lights here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 lights. I guess that's not really that crazy, but I gotta make sure I light that background. I gotta make sure I light all of these guys right here. I gotta make sure I got some overhead lights. And on top of all that stuff, I wanted to make sure that I had a kind of a higher shutter speed than I typically would have had. Back in the day, like, I usually would shoot really low shutter speeds, but lately, within the last 6 months, I've been trying to shoot higher shutter speeds, just because I think the quality comes out a little bit nicer. So I've been trying to work on that. So if you want a higher shutter speed, of course you got to provide more light. because the higher you raise your shutter speed, the less light hits the camera. So you got to really kind of bombard the whole scene with a shit ton of light. For posing, it was kind of difficult to get these guys in poses. I initially wanted Rogue right here with her ass showing to the front of the camera, like with her back turned. Trying to give that whole kind of Jim Lee vibe to this shot, even though this is kind of like a hodgepodge of different figures, and it's not really based off the animated series, and you know, all their costumes aren't like technically in the comic book continuity, but I did my best trying to pull together the team to make it look the most like the Jim Lee blue team. But poses, neutral poses, this is just them kind of crash landing. I didn't want them in fighting poses, I just really wanted them in kind of neutral poses. It was hard trying to get them posed on this part right here because they kept sliding. So under Wolverine and Psylocke's feet, I put just a tiny bit of blue tack. If you guys are wondering what I mean by blue tack, I have some blue tack right here. It's basically plumber's tack. It's probably one of the most important things for my toy photography. I use it pretty much every shot. Helps things stick to the ground. It helps them to stop them from sliding. It's just a very useful tool. So yeah, neutral poses. I wanted to make sure you could see all of them in the frame. Kind of had like Cyclops coming down. It's kind of like a arrowhead, this whole posing. Cyclops, Psylocke, and Beast, and then Rogue and Wolverine kind of making a triangle coming down the ladder. Just kind of works out. You can see them all in the frame. Of course, when you're doing group shots, you got to make sure that you can see everybody. So let me show you a different angle. Alright, so here's a little bit more of the shot. I wanted to show this before I take it away. This is a big softbox that I'm using for this shot. This is great, especially since this setup is so big. Really provides a lot of light for everything, so I'm just going to move that out of the way just want to show you guys that. Yeah, this setup's pretty big, man. You can see this, you can see some of the lights over there. I guess I'll talk about some of the lighting real quick. You can see I got a light right there. It's just to shine on Wolverine and Rogue and Cyclops, who are the main focal point for this shot. You'll see them generally the most in focus. Psylocke, of course, will be in focus, and then Hank back there won't be in focus pretty much at all, as well as all of this right here. I love this G.I. Joe diorama mat. It's got like this weird grass kind of material on it. It was really expensive. I bought it like 2 years ago, and it's really not that big, but for shots like this, it looks really cool, man. It just really kind of gives that whole foresty kind of feel, and it doesn't look like it's got that clean cut, like mowed grass kind of look. So that's kind of why I like it. It's got a little bit of a wild quality to it. This is just like mainly just bonsai trees, but I remember I was just going to talk about the lighting. I just started talking about fucking all this other shit. So yeah, softbox. Got another light right here. Got to make sure that background's lit, because even though we have the trees and all the brush and everything covering up most of this area, we still want to have that shine and that brightness coming from that background to kind of simulate the back, like a sky, or you know, whatever it may be in the back, you know, whatever the color may be. I went with a little sky background. I typically go with sky backgrounds. Back in the day, I used to use just colored poster boards, and I still do from time to time, but typically if I'm shooting a scene with, you know, a group shot or something like this, I'll use the sky background, just because I just always think it looks better than just like a colored poster board. But you know, that's just my cup of tea. So but yeah, I got a little LED light strip down there. Got a couple more lights right here pointing at the background, so I gotta make sure that background's taken care of. Then we can move on to the figures. Of course, the light boxes, or the soft boxes, giving them a lot of light, and then of course I have this little LED light strip overhead giving them some light. So yeah, this is a lot of lights. Gotta make sure everything's well lit, especially for the group shot. You know, when it comes to group shots, I guess the main things you want to look out for is make sure you can see everybody, make sure you have adequate lighting and everything is covered, and posing. You know, make sure that all their poses aren't exactly the same and they're all kind of different. You know, you can see Cyclops is at the end here. He's got one foot up. Then I got Cyclops, Jesus Christ, Psylocke pointing with her back kind of towards the camera. Got Wolverine kind of in a neutral stance facing forward. Same with Rogue, and then I kind of got Hank in a walking stance back there. So all their poses are different. And I want to make sure they're all uniformed and all looking the same, unless I was going for that kind of shot. So, alright, so that's gonna do it for this little X-Men shot extravaganza that I kind of put together here. I started off with that Professor X shot, and then I was like, you know what, I could probably make a little X-Men themed episode out of this. So just 3 shots, nothing crazy, but they're all very different and all kind of cool, and I had a lot of fun shooting all of them. I would probably say this is probably my favorite shot out of all of them, because you know, I usually stick to just one character and try to get a cool shot of that. So when I get to kind of departure from that and do a group shot, it's always kind of fun. It is kind of stressful sometimes, you know, especially trying to get these two on the this little ramp that I created, but it really wasn't really all that complicated. I kind of spent the whole day just taking my time, making the scene, and then once I made the scene, I just kind of posed them one by one. Started with Cyclops, and then I went with Beast, and then I had Rogue, and then I knew I wanted these two right here. I think I did Wolverine first, and then I did Psylocke. I keep saying Cyclops, goddammit. And they just kept falling, and when they would fall into Cyclops. But it really wasn't that bad. I kind of anticipated that, and then I kind of put the tack underneath their feet, and yeah, here we go. Kind of worked out pretty good. So really like this shot. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you want to see more of my behind the scenes, make sure to check out my Instagram at Century Productions. You'll see the link below. I do, you know, more in-depth behind the scenes. I kind of get in there with my phone more than I can with my camera right here, and I show the finished photos and just having fun, man. We're moving into the new year. This might be posted in 2024 already, so just been having a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. Of course, like always, leave some feedback below if you think there's something I could have changed or something you'd like to see in the future, or you know, just a comment. If you want to direct message me on Instagram, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And I just appreciate you guys, and I hope everything's all well, and I hope you guys are doing good. So let's check out this final shot. Thanks, guys.
That's crispy.